Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
All right, you are very welcome along to Friday Night Racing here on Off the Ball. Every Friday afternoon we stream live on YouTube, Facebook, and of course on Twitter. It's facebook.com/Off the Ball. It's youtube.com/Off the Ball, or it's twitter.com/Off the Ball. Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie, or you can follow their new Twitter account at HRI Racing. Obviously, we're going to look back on last weekend and the fairly amazing scenes at the Curragh, and I'm delighted to say that Sheila Lavery is our special guest this week. Sheila, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
You were kind of at the centre of everything that happened on Sunday afternoon.
Yes, not by any design, really. It just happened that Tony McCoy rode my horse, so...
That was pretty lucky.
Yeah.
How did that come to pass? Was it a draw? Is that what happened?
No, I'll tell you what happened, because Kevin O'Ryan had asked, a couple of weeks ago, did we have anything that was suitable? You know, mile horse between 17 and 19. I said Njord, and I hadn't even thought of Quizical. And then when I was talking to Martin in HRI, just to see if they were going to use Njord, because I would have run him if they weren't, or I was thinking of entering him up. And he said he wasn't sure. He said they really needed a 90 horse. And I just said, oh, what about Quizical? And he said, oh, that'd be great. And I just said...
Martin Murphy, is it?
Yes,
one of the most knowledgeable men in racing. If you, there's a quiz in Bagnallstown every year in the Lord Bagnall. Have you been to it?
No, but I follow it every year.
It's a fundraiser. I forget the... It's
Joe Foley runs it.
Yeah, Joe Foley runs it,
Yeah.
but Martin always, basically, he's always in the winning team.
Oh, so
and if you've ever any query about anything in racing, Martin will know the answer.
So he's on Ryan McGilligan's team, yeah?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
But, so I just said I had, because he was entered, and I'd been waiting kind of all year for a bit of soft ground. And anyway, so I said if he pulls out of Listowel, I didn't realise how badly they needed kind of a 90 horse, because most probably mightn't have run Quizical. Anyway, I think was to his benefit that he did run.
When you said they badly needed it, was that because Tony needed a...
Well, they needed a top-end horse for the weights.
Right. Just explain that, will you? Because a lot of us don't really understand the dark arts of how they work, particularly when you've got somebody like...
You're looking at me.
I'd say Johnny
was Quizical top weight?
He was.
Yeah, so they wanted a compressed... It was a very compressed handicap. It was actually... So they obviously... Because it was a special event, they needed, like, there wouldn't be overloaded with horses that were sort of suited to the race. So I guess they didn't want like horses out of the handicap, or they wanted horses like, if Quizical probably just fit the bill in terms of fitting in at top weight and bringing that right kind of class angle.
Well, let me just go back and explain to everybody who might not be aware. So Pat Smullen's Champions Race for Cancer Trials Ireland was last weekend, and the greatest jockeys of all time came together for one last hurrah.
Oh, it was amazing. Just the people that Pat got was amazing.
And here's the thing, they all have... So it's a flat handicap race, and they all have to roughly end up being the same weight on each of the horses, isn't that?
Yeah, because
you add or take, so you got to subtract some weights to the...
Well, like I saw Tony McCoy at the kind of the launch of it in Joseph O'Brien's yard, and he certainly wasn't as lean as he used to be, because
he doesn't need to be.
No, because he spent 20-25 years of effectively not eating, like.
Yeah.
And then, so I'd say it was a challenge for some of them to get down to the weight. I'm speculating here, but I'd say they did have to work a bit.
Well, no worries, you can cast aspersions. Go on.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when I weighed Tony out, he was very red in the face.
Yeah.
He'd been in the sauna for quite a while, I think.
It was, like the race itself, I've never seen anything like it in terms of the emotional weight of it. It was a day where there were 4 Group 1 races, but that was the race people wanted to see. And it was obviously multifaceted in that you were getting to see these lads ride against each other, which will never happen really again. But it was also just the weight of Pat being there. And I remember talking to Kevin O'Ryan, and he wasn't sure, his agent and his friend, obviously, he wasn't sure if he could make the day. And Pat being there, there he is with Charlie Swan and Joseph, Pat being there was so special. And, you know, after the race, Tony McCoy was welling up. I'm sure you were welling up. But Tony McCoy made that macho comment when he won the Grand National for the first time, that I'm a sissy now because I'm crying in front of my daughter. But nobody was accusing him of being a sissy when he and Pat Smullen were in tears effectively after the race. And it was hard not to more or less be reduced to tears yourself. It was a day just laden with emotion.
What do you remember about it now?
I remember bricking it, putting AP up, because I was absolutely terrified that the horse wouldn't run well, you know. But I knew he was in great form and he was bouncing, but still, I wanted the horse just to run so well. But I think Tony was much more confident than me. But
sorry, we skipped a bit earlier on about how you ended up with Tony.
Because in the handicap, so he's 90. So because he's 90, he would carry the most weight.
Okay.
So that the horses then the handicapper would have them, that they were all on an even starting point, if that's the best way of describing it. So
that was always going to be Tony, was it?
I think, yeah, I didn't know that when I put in Quizzical, but just when I phoned Martin on the Thursday, I was actually back down in Listowel with another runner, and the others had we'd left very early and they trotted him out, and I knew he'd eaten up because I had fed him that morning, and they just said he was he was really fresh. So I phoned Martin up and said, yeah, he's good, he's great.
The stars aligned.
The stars aligned. Yeah.
And it was a great performance as well. He had to tough it out, and you know, Desi Scahill was back commentating, which just added to the whole allure of the race. And Desi gave us a hell of a lot of gusto in the commentary, and the Curragh stand. There was just a great noise. There was a great buzz for the whole thing, and it was Tony McCoy punching the air crossing the line, and then the photographs afterwards. It was everything went to script, really. Particularly if you backed Quizzical or owned Quizzical, because a lot of people did back it. It was backed into hot favourite.
Right.
Yeah.
So why was it favourite in the end?
Well, I suppose part of the AP, and on ratings, he most probably he was the best horse in the race. But then he was carrying the most weight of all the horses in the race.
Yeah.
But Dermot Weld had a horse as well, a likely race 3-year-old Curragh maiden winner, and it was just like, this is almost too obvious. And Dermot had 3 winners. I think he'd had 3 winners the weekend, so there was a lot of like logic behind backing Dermot's as well. But Quizzical was the one for money.
Surely no one was going to beat Tony McCoy though. Like they're all competitive animals, but he is the most competitive.
He didn't look like he'd been retired in the finish.
Well, none of them did.
Yeah.
That was the amazing. I don't think any of them did. And
like Charlie Swan hasn't ridden for
I know,
it goes to 20 years or whatever now.
So none of them did. Like they were all looked amazing.
What else do you remember about like bringing him down and bringing him out and then the parade ring afterwards?
But I suppose I was so busy jumping up and down and shouting and screaming, and I didn't realise that they'd done an amazing thing, the jockeys, because I know Barbara from HRI had asked them, they'd asked them to walk back in when they pulled up, to the gate in a line, but apparently that just among themselves, all the jockeys just decided they'd walk right down by the stand. And when you look at the picture, I think it's just amazing, because there were 9 horses in that, and they had just run a mile. And it was like they were out for a stroll. Every jockey had a loose rein, and they just walked in a line. That is the most amazing picture.
It'd be great if we could find that photo. It was like they were just posers, you know, and they were just so relaxed about it.
They were so
We'll have
relaxed.
a look for it. We'll see.
Drag it up.
I'm hoping that somebody gets it and prints it. And and actually,
Looking
funny,
for a Christmas gift there.
Well, a few of the trainers were saying, like, God, there's more money to be made out of that, like to print and sell them, for the cancer trials.
Yeah.
Because I'd buy one. I mean, it was just stunning.
It was also the fact that Pat made every effort to make this not about Pat Smullen, and it's that kind of altruism, despite the challenge that he faces, that just makes him the most remarkable person and the most selfless individual. And the news this morning that $2.5 million has been raised. I was absolutely gobsmacked by that, and counting as well.
And here's the thing: I was being told about how the money is going specifically to a research unit that is part of a global effort. So a lot of times you think of Lance Armstrong's charity, he wasn't actually raising money for research. That was not for research, it was for other things. This is specifically going to try and combat the illness itself, which I think is really important, that actually when you're giving money to charity, you know exactly where it's going.
Absolutely.
And it's going to the right thing.
Absolutely. And you know, as has been said, we've all been affected by cancer in some shape or form, and it's just that the fact that, you know, this is helping the fight to save lives, and I just, you know, Pat will go down as a great rider, but how he's been since March of last year, he's just an unbelievable person. I can't say enough for him.
Again, it's mad how, I'm sure you've definitely had bigger races that you've trained for in your life, and yet were you as nervous if you're bricking it before that one? Is that how you generally are when you've got a contender?
I wouldn't be as nervous like when Lady Kaya was running. It was the same level of nervousness, yeah.
So she ran the Guineas in Newmarket.
Yes.
So this is the same kind of level in your head. It's like, it's funny, isn't it?
Well, just because of what it was, and I know that if I hadn't had a horse running, or if I hadn't had runners, I'd have gone racing that day, but I'd have gone to see those riders. I'd have watched the other group races on the TV.
That was the feeling as well.
Yeah.
People were there to see them.
And a lot of...
There we are.
Isn't that an amazing photograph? Those horses have all just run.
Good work, Enda. Getting the snap up already.
But...
Charlie Swan, Joseph O'Brien, Ruby Walsh, Tony McCoy, Paul Carberry, Johnny Murtagh, yeah. And then we've Ted Durkin, Kieran Fallon, and Charlie Swan, I think. Is that right?
Yes.
No, Richard Hughes was in the race as well.
I think Richard's
in the blue and yellow, actually.
Yeah, that's Richard. And then Ted is in the horse with the noseband, and then that's...
We actually... Yeah, they're all there. Yeah.
All 9 of them. Yeah.
And the Curragh looked great as well. It was, you know, I brought a couple of people who wouldn't be regular race goers, and since the start of Irish Champions Weekend, the Curragh has definitely been the bridesmaid, no doubt. Some of it has taken place where the Curragh was a building site, which was controversial. A lot of people thought it shouldn't have been there, but in any event, it was. The Curragh then had a fairly checkered year this year, with problems with the customer experience, even utterly bizarre problems of the electricity going out, and then a noise coming from the stand when it was windy, like all this stuff that you really couldn't make up, and you'd have to have some sympathy for Derek McGrath in the way that worked out. But Pat Keogh came in, and they changed the kind of experience in terms of the tiered structure and the class, the somewhat elitist kind of feel that you got from the Curragh. That doesn't wash in Ireland, to me. It may work in other countries, mainly like Britain, have kind of their areas where you can go and you can't go. In Ireland, the guy wearing, you know, the brown Thomas suit is just as likely to be racing as the guy wearing a hoodie, and I think it's all the better for that. It's a classless kind of system, and the Curragh is now, you can basically have access to a lot more areas. So I went up to the second floor, so it was like 2 escalators up, and you had the bar. You could go out from the bar onto the balcony. You were directly overlooking the parade ring. So when Jessie's filly was running in the Moyglare, Albina, you could tell she was on her toes. You were right in front of her, and I was looking at her. I was going to back her, and I was like, I couldn't go near her. But then when they got out the parade ring, you could see them going down to start, and you literally just had to walk like about 5 seconds around the corner, and you're at the finishing line in the stand. It was like, I really, really enjoyed the experience, and I think even the people I brought, they said they loved the racing on Sunday, and then you added in the whole emotion of the day, and it was just one of my most memorable days racing ever, definitely.
Yeah, that's class. I mean, but sometimes all of that teething problems require some emotional moment to bind people back to something that they always had. Yeah,
but I think Pat Keogh is amazing, because it's something I had, just going back to what Johnny said there about it being classless, because he said when he came into the Curragh, and he came through this before he was the manager, and the first thing he saw was the owners and trainers. And he thought, that's not right for the general public coming in. It's like an elitist. So he moved that whole... Now, you know, so that's just a normal bar.
Yeah.
Like, he has an incredible brain, I think, just to spot that immediately and just change. I mean, the whole atmosphere has changed in the Curragh since he...
Yeah, absolutely, and it's badly needed, because there's so much money invested in it. It couldn't become a white elephant, you know, and you just ask any horseman or ask Sheila, like, the quality of the ground at the Curragh is just as good as you'll get anywhere in the world, and we should never lose sight of the historical resonance of the place, because it's so old and horses have been on those plains for literally millennia, and it is the proper home of flat racing in Ireland. And it's gone through a ropey period. But I think with Pat at the helm was an absolute masterstroke. I don't know what they're paying him, but he's worth it.
Okay, fair enough. You're watching Friday Night Racing, or maybe you're listening to us on the radio and the Off the Ball show on Newstalk this evening as well. Sheila, you mentioned Lady Kaya there, like obviously incredibly happy memories, but also a tragic end. So have you made peace with that whole relationship with Lady Kaya?
Oh, it's still very raw, you know, and they showed a bit of, and I started to cry again, funny at the Curragh, you know, because before the Moyglare they were showing, you know, previous winners. And
you were doing a lot of crying on Sunday. Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 bouts of crying, and it's only 5 o'clock.
Skitter scatter, you know, obviously won it, but yeah, yes, it's still raw, but there you go, you just have to get on with it, you know.
It should just be mentioned, Lady Kaya was a complete freak. Like, this shouldn't happen, that a trainer, like with a small string, a filly by Dandy Man, is so good. It was just, and then the freakish element of it is that she was finished second in the Guineas, massive campaign ahead. God, she could drop back and trip for the Commonwealth Cup, could be amazing, and then she's dead. And it's like, that's racing.
What happened to her?
She was a filly, and I'm not joking, I never trotted up for a vet because she never pulled out sore, she never pulled out stiff. She was incredible. She was never sick. I think she was lame once in all the, you know, apart from her cut as a foal, but she had a stone bruise. I think that was about it. She never got treated, she never got anything. And then we were just doing our final bit of work before Ascot, and as she had a lead horse, we were in the Curragh, and I remember driving down, looking at the old Vic, going, gosh, it looks beautiful. It'd just been watered. There hadn't been a horse on it. Just that happened at that lot. And I was watching, and I saw just Lady Kaya with her back leg in the air, and I knew I was in trouble, so just ran straight down to her.
And what had caused it, or what had happened?
A freak. She'd broken the bone just below the stifle in a hind leg, but it hadn't just broken, it was like it had imploded.
Right.
So the lads on the gallop came straight down, and it all happened very quickly, and then Anglesey Lodge came, Juan from Anglesey Lodge came, and I kind of knew, but I said to him, we have to try and save this filly.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just say on the gallop. So we drove up the 2 box. My brother John was there with Joanne, so I'm glad that they were all there, that I didn't have to make a phone call. So we loaded her up on the Old Vic and drove her and got her x-rayed, but it was in smithereens.
Right.
She's completely freak.
What's the feeling there? Because it's an animal, but it's a lot more than that, and it's a filly that you've probably grown very attached to, and you know that she's going to be gone anytime soon, and there's nothing we can do.
Oh, heartbreak. It's the only way, and heartbreak for all of us. And Robbie was there, and he stood in the back with her while I drove her up to
Robbie Colgan.
Robbie Colgan, yeah. Look, everybody was just heartbroken, you know. But as soon as we realised, we just asked them then to put her straight down so that she didn't suffer. Yeah.
Robbie Colgan as well, like, if it was effectively a journeyman jumps jockey who turned to the flat. One of the most underrated riders, I think, in the last 10, 20 years, really. And he's riding a horse on the last off the bridle in the Guineas at Newmarket, finishes second. And the whole story was, everyone loved the story of Lady Kaya until the end.
Yeah. Where did you get Lady Kaya? What's the provenance?
My niece bought her as a foal.
Right.
And to pinhook her, like to sell her as a yearling. And she got a cut, actually, as a foal. We were going racing, and one of the girls phoned Joanne was with me, and said the filly had got a bad cut. So they took her from my place down to Anglesey Lodge. My vets came, Brato's veterinary clinic came, but she needed to go get surgery, so she went down to Anglesey Lodge. And there was they had to knock her to take all the dirt that debride the cut. But there was absolutely no damage.
Right.
Like another kind of miracle, because such a bad cut. And you never even saw. She never had a scar. She had a few white hairs.
Right.
That was it. And it was down at just around her fetlock joint, just below her fetlock joint.
And what age was she at that point?
She was a foal.
Right. So it still hadn't been broken.
It hadn't been broken. She was a yearling. Sorry,
Okay.
It was just before the yearling sales. So that's why Joanne didn't get to sell her, because she had to stand in with this cut for a number of weeks. So she went to the sales and looked backwards.
Okay. So so you can't sell her.
Well, she could have sold her and taken a loss, but
Decided to keep her.
Yeah.
So just on that, right? So she's not amazingly good looking. She's not amazingly well bred. So what would she have sold her for? And if that sliding doors moment, she could have gone for very little.
She could have gone for very little, and there was a lady, I think, who phoned up, and I think she might have offered. I think Joe paid maybe 16,000 for her, and she might have offered. I can't remember the exact.
10 or so, maybe.
10, I think. Yeah.
And there you are, like.
Yeah, and you know.
And then you're like, and then this is the beauty of it. You start galloping like the horse in initial stage, and you're like, ooh.
Well,
this is
so
interesting.
when does it get interesting? Is it the first time out in the gallops? You're like, hang on a second, my watch is broken. Let's just do that again.
Yeah.
What happens?
Are you big into the timing like Aidan and all that?
No. When does it happen? Funny. You just watch them canter, and I remember this year, like the first lot of yearlings, like you end up at the end of the season really tired, and you go, oh God, I'm not going through this again. And then you get the yearlings, and then they're broken.
Bear in mind, you're only training like 6 years or something. Had to mean 60.
I'm not far off it. But, and you see a horse canter by, and you go, ooh, I like that, and you just get. And I remember just the first day seeing Robbie Colgan canter the filly. She wasn't even named. It might have been the first day she was even cantering on the gallops, Little Grey, and I thought, oh, I like her, and Lady Kaya was the same. But I just think I like them. But it's the riders that come back and say they have an amazing feeling. They can give a really good feedback, and they just say this does it very easy. And I'm only talking about the first or second week that they're cantering. They'll give me. They're not going to say they're a world beater, but they say that feels nice.
Right, and that's it.
And that's it. And then you progress on from that.
And so, is there a hair on the back of your neck moment when that happens, or is it a bit just damping down expectations? There's
a hair in the back of your moment when you. Well, I bring them to the Curragh to work, because my gallop is 4.5 furlongs in the round, but it's kind of up and down the hill, so we don't actually gallop them. We don't work them there. We might do a swinging canter, but it's the first time you bring them to the Curragh and do their first bit. Then that's the hair on the back of your neck when you realise that they're doing this terribly easy.
Right. And they come back and they're safe and they're sound, and you're like, okay, this actually didn't take anything out of this horse.
Yeah.
It always strikes me a little bit about the Curragh is that you're doing that in the full glare of everybody else who's at the Curragh too, who are like, ooh.
Yeah. And yeah, there's like, how many people?
Query tells a story about Kevin Prendergast kind of like ringing him. What was that yoke?
Yeah.
What was there? He's like, I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you.
The Curragh is great for that, because they have that the coffee shop there in the equestrian centre or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'd say there's great everyday chat. Like, I'd say, God knows, there's an awful lot of crap on TV. If you did a diary of the Curragh, like, and did a year of just following the characters around the Curragh, it would make for great TV, and you wouldn't need to have any interest in racing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of chat, and Brendan Sheridan was, in fairness to the IHRB, they do these great videos now where the clerk walks the track.
Yes, yeah.
Niall Cronin, his reign of terror at the old turf club has started, like, and Niall is a good mate of mine, but he's done, this is one of the things he brought in where the clerk of the course will give a video, but the Curragh looked amazing last week. It was like basically just post dawn, and the sun was just coming up behind the stand, and it was kind of like it's not like Highway to Heaven, that movie, that show or whatever that your man was in, but it looked amazing. And
Michael Land.
Michael Land. It's a special place, and the racing is just a small part of the Curragh.
Do you ever go and like work something out to kind of set the cat amongst the pigeons? Like, yeah, I want you all to see this. I'm telling you now, we're going to be racing this over 7 furlongs. You all better not be in that same race. Is there any bit of that going on? Is there a little bit of it?
No, I don't think so, but word gets around, because I know the first time Lady Kaya ran, like, she was backed, and we're not a backing yard, but a few of the jockeys had ridden her work, because at the time Robbie hadn't committed to going, I thought 9.5, was his lowest weight, so a few of them had ridden her, and a few of them had seen her, but they would spot, you know, they would spot something. But everybody's just so busy doing their own thing. And actually, funny, going back to your comment this morning, because I was there this morning at 7:30 with 2 workers, and Johnny Murtaugh was there with workers as well, and we were just standing on, you know, the little mound, and it was that kind of mist, and like even Johnny just said, God, isn't it just beautiful in a morning like this? And but you know, mine worked up, two fillies worked up well, but you're so busy looking after your own, like you'd never bother asking what's that, because
unless you're Kevin Prendergast.
Yeah, Kevin doesn't care for social norms at this stage.
So we got to the point where Lady Kaya is really good and then becomes a superstar. Is that a quick process for you? Does that happen kind of within a couple of months? Are you suddenly changing where you're plotting the course?
I suppose because the lads had said all along that she was way above average, and that year it was very dry and she hadn't run before Ascot because she'd just got a bit of shins, so she missed Ascot as a 2-year-old, which was it was a shame, but she was, when she was ready she ran, but you knew by her first run, like Robbie gave her an absolutely beautiful ride, and she would have come on a ton. And then when she won her second race, which was sponsored by Airfield Lodge, or the
Curragh, is it?
The maiden in the Curragh, the winners. It was, what's that? I can't remember. The Landweights, is it? Whatever that race is, anyway. When she won that, and so then you're
into kind of
dream.
Yeah.
You have to do it on the track.
You mentioned as well, Robbie, like when you gave the horse a lovely ride. How important is it for a filly not to make her resent it first time out and make her kind of, you know, she's racing for the first time, it's like, don't really want to put the gun to her head necessarily, but how important is an educational ride or kind of a kind handling?
I think, especially for fillies, I think it is. And especially a filly like that gave you everything. That you don't want to bottom them out, or you don't want to give them a bad experience. Now you have to try at the same time. But yeah, I think, and educate them. And that's where I think the barrier trials are wonderful, because you can go out and you can educate them now, and you don't have to, you can just let them, you know, come up on the bridle, and they get a great experience.
This has been a big talking point this week, because the barrier trials in Naas have been very informative in terms of, you're on about like...
What are the barrier trials?
So I haven't really seen, you might explain better, but these barrier trials are basically like, they're exercises that are non-races, but they take place at the track.
Right.
And this week in Naas, there were some profound results from, like, one horse, Jerry Keane trained as Colin's dad. He was 50-1 the night before. I think it was a he.
Yes, Capella Sansevero.
Capella Sansevero, who was Ger Lyons trained back in the day. Was 50-1 anyway. Clearly the odds compilers had no knowledge of the barrier trial, but this horse had really breezed, like really worked well in the barrier trial and ended up winning well at like 6-1 or something like that.
Right, okay. So it's an opportunity to get the horse around the track, presumably with barriers then, and see what it's actually like.
Yeah, what it is, they actually have proper stall handlers there.
Okay.
The jockeys wear the colours, so there's nothing hidden. You know, so anybody who knows about them, and they're all put... the videos are all there on YouTube, or on I think you go onto the ITM website and they'll tell you where they are. And all the horses in every race are in their colours, and it's about 6 to 8 horses in each trial, as they call it. So they jump from the stalls, and they can be 5, 6, 7 furlongs. It just depends.
And for you guys, it's an opportunity to see how they're going to, and to train them. It's essentially training.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Friday Night Racing is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. We've got to take a quick break. We've loads more to talk about with Sheila. We've got some preview of the weekend's racing to come your way as well. Back after these.
Off the ball. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Rugby season is back,
And Lifestyle Sports is giving you the chance to win something very special.
The ultimate rugby year for you and 3 mates.
You could be headed to the Champions Cup final,
The Pro 14 final.
interprovincial games of your choice,
And get match day ready with kit bags full of jerseys.
new season training gear.
€400 in vouchers and more.
Check out lifestylesports.com
Lifestyle Sports Rugby on Insta.
or buy any jersey in store or online for a chance to win.
Live rugby with Lifestyle Sports.
The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts is back at the City West Convention Centre, Dublin from the 6th to the 12th of October. See 32 of the biggest darting stars on the planet, including world number 1 Michael van Gerwen, former Grand Prix champion Darrell Gurney, plus fan favourite Peter Wright. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.ie and search darts. The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts at City West. Game on.
All right, very welcome back to Friday Night Racing. Sheila, before the break there, we were talking about one of the superstars in your yard, but Johnny mentioned that you've only been 6 years training. Is that right?
Yes.
So
You are a strange story now. What do you do when you're in your early 50s? You take up training horses.
How mad is that?
Explain.
or genius.
No, mad.
Yeah.
I'm not from a horse background, but I've always been involved in horses, and I evented, worked full time to support that, and then about 8 years ago, realised that I really just couldn't drive in and out of town anymore. So
What were you doing?
Dublin, yeah.
What were you doing in town?
Well, I was an agent for a number of publishing companies.
Okay, right.
So, you'd be in and out of town a lot. And in fact, I knew that the horses were taking over, and I knew I wasn't very good at my job
Were you
anymore.
sourcing authors for or
No,
representing agent?
I was
books?
agent. BBC was one of my main agencies. Lovely company to work for. I worked for them for 10 years. I was always self-employed.
Right.
So it wasn't that I was skiving on their time. If I didn't sell, I didn't earn. But I realised then that really my heart wasn't in it. And I'd always bred. And so then
For racing or for eventing?
for both, well,
Okay.
actually both, but for racing, I was always a big flat racing fan. And then one day I just got a text from my brother John out of the blue, who never went racing and had no interest in horses, but he just read an article about See the Stars, and I just got this text. If you have a mare to go to See the Stars, I'll pay for the covering and we'll share the foal or whatever.
Right.
So I'm looking at this.
That's all right. Yeah.
I'm going, yeah, don't have a mare good enough. So I thought about it and I thought, nah, I knew it would be hard to source a mare at that stage. So I just said, well, what about going into pinhooking? What's pinhooking? So that's how it kind of started. And I bought 2 colts and a filly the first year. And one sold, made a bit of profit, and one didn't. And then I went to Newmarket with the filly, which I absolutely loved. But I wasn't making. I'd paid 15,000 for her as a foal.
You went to the Newmarket sales?
Newmarket sales,
Okay.
yeah.
What
And
did you love about it?
I couldn't understand what other people didn't see in her.
It wasn't Victoria, was it?
It was.
There we
yeah.
are.
And there was just, and sometimes when you prep them and they're professional, and she was professional, like everything you did with her, she just took and she did. And anyway, there was nobody for her. She was an oratorio filly and nobody wanted her. And so I phoned John, and he couldn't get his head around losing money. Because in pinhooking, quite often you sell at a loss, you take the money and you take the hit and you go again because you need the money to buy your produce
one,
for the next one. Anyway, so that was fine, and I got a phone call that night to see. I think I was offered a funny bit like Lady Kaya by a trainer in England, 10,000, and John and I decided no, we'd race her. So put her into training, and she was.
Who's training her?
It started off, Ada McGuinness had her, and then she went from Ado's to Eddie Lynham's.
Okay. At some point along the way, are you going, I could do that?
Funny, a couple of friends of mine had told me years and years and years ago that I said I'd love to train a good filly. And over the years, I have looked at it, because initially always just interested in training flat horses. And then because I bred, it was always going to be 2-year-olds that I'd have, but they wouldn't allow restricted trainers originally to train 2-year-olds. Things kept changing over the years, because many times I went to go apply for my licence and something happened, or I wasn't allowed to train what I wanted to train.
Yeah.
So then Vistoria came along, and then I thought, right,
Going to do this.
I'm going to do this. I was never going to train her, because that would have been too stupid to start off.
Was she quite small? Or was she, because Oratorio wouldn't have been the biggest?
She wasn't small, but she was, I suppose, a little bit upright and toed out a bit. But to me, she just looked so racy. You know, and I thought I was going to get a Klondike for her as a yearling.
So what happens to Vistoria?
What happened to her? She won first time out, and then she won listed race. And then she went to the Commonwealth Cup, or not the Coronation, the fillies race in Ascot. It's Coronation, isn't it? Yeah. And the ground was fast. That was the only thing about Vistoria. She was ground dependent. And a furlong out, I thought, my God, she's going to win a classic. But the ground just got her. Johnny Murtagh was riding her. And so then she won a Group 3, Group 2 listed races, but just needed a bit of a cut in the ground.
That's not bad for, like, is it a third horse that you pinhooked? You're like, well, I'm not bad at this. I'm pretty good at this.
Again, not fashionably bred, you know. Oratorio wouldn't be top stallion by any means. Very genuine horses, but like, just that's the variance of racing. Sometimes it can just work out.
Well, do you know what? I try not to go with the fads or if I look at a horse and I like it and I think it looks racy, I'll buy it because
it's good enough for me.
It's good enough for me, because then when I was training, then I bought another Oratorio horse called we called him Itorio. You know, so that's he's been a good sire for me.
I love the science behind it. Looks a bit racy.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's...
I mean, I think I know exactly what it means.
Racy has a lot of connotations, but in this instance, yeah. But it is like a lot of, I think the good judges can look away from maybe the potential negatives on the page and just look at the actual individual and say, yeah, I like that horse. And that's the beauty of it. It's the all-knowing eye or whatever.
Yeah, it's the coach who looks at what's going on and says, I see what you can do for me, as opposed to all those coaches like, oh, you can't do that, you're too slow, you can't do this. It's
a bit like the Troy Parrott debate now, right? I think a good coach should be able to say, Troy Parrott, I don't care who he's playing against, I know from looking at him, he's good enough to be in the Ireland squad. Instead of the stuff that coaches say, time in, time out, he needs to be playing senior football until we consider him. And I'm like, no, he doesn't.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That's,
thanks, Ger. Any opinion?
That's big me.
Just say yes.
Just say yes. Yeah. No, I do agree with you, actually. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Though it's not. You should be able to. You should be able to tell, in my view.
How quickly did you start having success as a trainer then?
I took it out. I think I got the licence, say, in about November of. I think this course was kind of late that year in November, and I ran a filly I had a filly. I ran her in Dundalk a few times, but then the next year, my first full year, then I had my first winner, 2-year-old winner in the Curragh by Dandyman.
What do you remember that?
I remember John nearly breaking his ankle jumping up and down.
The fellow who'd no interest in racing not that long previously.
With the excitement and the excitement, it was brilliant. And then I remember thinking, oh my God, I can do it. You know, like, it always surprised me when the horses ran well in the beginning.
It's a kind of surge of adrenaline and endorphins and justification and things that aren't real.
Yeah, well, I just remember saying something, I think we'd gone viral that year as well, and he ran really well in Goran or somewhere, and Will Hayes, who does a lot of the stalls work, you know, for people, and Will was there, and I said, oh my God, he ran really well, can you believe it? And he said, well, that's your job. And I thought, yeah, it is, but my God.
That's class.
The postman doesn't get praised for delivering the post, etc., you know?
Yeah. That's an amazing story. the decision to quit and do this thing is, I think.
Well, very, very lucky with the backing of John, because it would be so hard to do it. You know, I didn't have the money to do it, so he's put up the money and bought the horses, and you know, the business the first few years has paid for itself, but now it's really hard because we sold horses.
Yeah.
But now it's really hard to get them to sell the horses. So
I think you're being modest as well, though, in that you're obviously a very good horsewoman, and that if you have a good eye for it, the training will probably come naturally, and you can train a horses probably a million different ways. If you're good around horses, you'll be able to figure it out.
it's very kind.
Yeah. As long as the horse can move, of course, which definitely helps.
Yeah, it turns out, and you've obviously got a good eye for that. So it was the lack of success at being a pinhooker ultimately. Which was, I mean, again, kind of sliding doors moment of brilliance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the aversion to being the publishing business.
Well, I knew I wasn't very good at it, so I decided to get out of it before it got out of me.
Yeah.
You know? I didn't like the thought of being fired.
A lot of us know we're not very good at our jobs. We don't have an alternative, you know.
I was going to say, I'd say a lot of people watching out there are going, it's not too late for me to change. I've got
Or you.
an inspiration for all of us, exactly, yeah. Let's take a look at some of the weekend's racing, because we've got lots to talk about. A reminder, of course, that Friday Night Racing is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie and follow the new Twitter account at HRI Racing. Where are we with our Tote Irish Injured Jockeys charity fund?
We bombed last weekend.
€7,549. So we have another £100 this week to try and add to our tally. No pressure, Johnny.
Yeah, the nap goes in the first race at Gorn. Peaceful. Trained by Aidan O'Brien, ridden by Donnacha O'Brien, Galileo filly, well-bred, very much not knocked about on debut. I'm a bit predictable now. I tip a lot of Aidan's Galileo horses second time out because they just don't win first time unless they're very special.
And you see he has 3 in this race, Heaven of Heavens. No surprises out of Halfway to Heaven, very good filly, but she will need the experience, I'd imagine. Pros, and this is the thing, Sheila, like Sheila may have a runner in a race like this, and you're like, oh, okay, well, Aidan has 3 fillies by Galileo. There was a race recently where he had a full sister to Hermosa, full sister to Capri, and a full sister to Kew Gardens, and 2 of them weren't going to win. And you're just like, it's tough. It's tough to compete at this, you know, you're dealing with the best in the world. Anyway, I think Peaceful will win that race.
What do you think?
I'd say I wouldn't ever go too hard on, as Johnny says, Aidan's first time out. And I never get excited when I beat his horses first time out.
Right.
If I beat them and they're second time out, then...
It's particularly the Galileos. Yeah, if it's like a war front or that, you can probably... Basically, yeah, like the war front may not improve at all from debut to second start. The Galileo is a guaranteed improver because they're 3-year-olds effectively as well.
Okay. Explain that.
So they're just like, you might get a precocious Galileo, but they're completely bred to thrive with time. And Aidan's big challenge is the amount of Galileo mares he has, who to send them to. And they had a bit of success with Deep Impact. He's now dead. Warfront has been a bit of a mixed bag, I would argue. And it's just, that is the challenge. Where do they go to cross?
Well, I think that's why they're... You know, they're trying all these American lines, and now it's Scat Daddy. And
yeah,
of course
he's dead as well.
Dead. So None and Caravaggio.
Yeah,
know, and they're trying, and they've been buying, or over the years, you know, they try and buy the speedy mares as well.
Yeah.
To put to Galileo, just to try and get a bit more precocity.
Absolutely, and it's interesting because Galileo and Aidan have probably had a similar influence on racing in terms of, if you were to say who's had the bigger influence in racing, Galileo or Aidan O'Brien, and it'd be a tough call actually. But anyway.
You have a horse in Gorn as well?
I do.
How's that going to go?
I think he'll go well, but...
Sheila's very honest as well about her horses. When she gives an interview, there's none of this, you know, he'll be this or that. She basically tells it as it is, like it or not.
It's a little bit short for him. I think it's just short of a mile too, but he's got a terrible draw, but he's in great form. He's off I think a very good rating still, and he goes on good ground, but I think the draw is a big factor, and he's like, he won mile 2 up the Curragh on the bridle, and he's run over a mile 4, so he should have a very good chance. But then I haven't looked at the race because I've just been on kind of the road. I haven't even...
You had one horse and you did no prep work for this radio piece whatsoever.
It's called Ultra Pride.
Ultra Pride, yeah. He's a homebred.
And what time is that, Johnny? Have you looked that up for us there?
I know that. It's 4:50.
Okay.
4:50.
The second last race, I think.
Yeah, it's after the big race, and with these big fields, it doesn't help. Another relatively unfashionably bred horse, the way you are.
The way you are, yes.
15, Robbie Colgan will have to bide his time, I'd say, from that draw. Well, he might get away with it over a mile and a half, but Goran is very, very tricky if you're drawn higher out of your ground.
Okay, so have you had a quick look? So right about 6-1 is the price for...
like I'd say have a few bob on him tomorrow, and if not, keep an eye on him the next day. Yeah. And it's 4 places as well.
Okay, the 4:15 at Goran, you were saying, is the big race today.
Yeah, this is the Denny Cardell Laverick and Land was sod filly stakes, and it's one of the good races on the calendar for these fillies. And as ever, Aidan throws in a load of horses to try and get them black type. The pin, such as it is, landed on one of Aidan's horses. I should give a mention to Come September for Gavin Cromwell. She's already rated 94, won a course and distance maiden, but I think Credenza out of Bye Bye Birdie, who I think David Watchman trained, another Galileo, I think she'll try to make the run and may take the beating.
Okay, so Credenza in the 4:15, but your nap of the weekend, as you said, was peaceful in the first race at Goran on Saturday. You did want to talk about Newbury on Saturday as well, the Dubai Duty Free Mill Reef Stakes.
Yes, another classy race. This a lot of sort of lightly raced types in it, and I don't think there's a runner from Ireland in it, but it's definitely going to be an informative race. And the favourite at the moment is Pierre Le Pan, who's also by Capella San Severo, who was the stallion of the horse we mentioned, Jerry Keynes earlier. This horse won very nicely first time out, despite things going rather against him, and he might take the beating for Roger Varian, who was one of the trainers who went close at ICW last weekend. He'd the runner-up in the Moiglar.
Okay. We're kind of in that interregnum where the biggest flat races of the year are over and the National Hunt is just coming slowly back.
And Dundalk is back tonight. It's a real sign of Dundalk is a very, very cold racetrack. When you think of Dundalk, you just think of being there on a Friday night, it being Baltic and probably losing money. You know, but I highly recommend it. It's back tonight. Great night out. Really enjoy it.
I've only ever lost money on your tips for Dundalk. I was just thinking about it. Dundalk's back tonight. I said, we've lost a lot of money with Johnny's tips. I heard this one's definitely gonna.
I found Dundalk harder actually as the years have gone on. I remember when they didn't have the false rail, it was kind of easier. In any event, it's back tonight, and I hope they have a good winter. They're going to relay the track fully next season. Yeah.
Friday evening racing at Dundalk returns tonight. To the tote.com, where you can also bet on tomorrow's action at Goran Park and the Gold Cup at Ayr. Should we talk about that?
Being honest, I haven't looked at that. I'm a bit like Sheila, limited prep work.
Sheila, it was great to have you with us. Continued success.
Thank you very much.
And best of luck this weekend and for everything else that's coming. And Johnny, time for us to get a winner again. So,
do you know what my nap of the weekend is? But the problem is I wouldn't be great on the old rugger. And I think you kind of agree with me on this. Scotland to beat Ireland. I'm just not convinced at all that Ireland's problems are behind them. If Scotland have a big performance in them,
I wouldn't make it a nap of the weekend.
3-1, 7-2.
I think there's a bit of value in that. Is how I would say that.
Just peripherally, would watch it obviously, but
you don't like betting against Ireland.
I was about to say that.
And I generally don't like it myself, but I think it could well happen.
Somebody smarter than I refers to it as the emotional hedge. So you're back against Ireland loads of times, and you're happy both ways. Well, not really. You're a little less happy, but if Ireland lose, but at least there's some minor compensation, especially when the odds are big.
You may have seen Andy Dunn when he was on earlier in the week, and he wouldn't fill you with confidence certainly about the line out, and I think it'll be a lot closer than the betting suggests.
Yeah, it'll definitely be close. But anyway, loads of good rugby coverage coming your way. It's all about horse racing here on Friday Night Racing. We're here with you every Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. We stream live on offtheball.com, and then every Friday evening from 8 on the Off the Ball show on News Talk. But another week is in the books. We'll see you next Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Until then, best of luck.
Friday Night Racing.
On Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.